Ronnie.
Smile.
Steve Galera on his Kate Vila Falls, Unveiling. I would just like to welcome you all here today on this special occasion. We want to unveil a memorial to the great concertina player, J Mullally, that was born in this very place. This monument is actually built, I think, roughly where his front door was. So it's a terrible day, and we are just going to ask Sean Byrne, his grandnephew he was originally from down in Empire, the other end of the parish. So it's great to have him here with us today. And we also have members of his family from Cork. So it's great to have everybody. And we would just have the unveiling, and then we will go inside to the centre and carry on with the rest of the programme. We have a few speeches, and then we have Noel Hill and a lot of musicians to play music. So I hope you enjoy the afternoon, and we will have tea and sandwiches. Okay, I'll ask Sean to unveil.
Okay, well, it's a great pleasure for me to do this, and I'm not going to detain you more than 2 minutes because of the way. It's wonderful and wonderfully appropriate that we're able to put it here on the spot where the family lived, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And I'm delighted to have, through this event, have reconnected with some of my Mullally relations who we'll be talking to later on inside. So without more ado, here we go.
Do you want a few each stand in along with him?
Well, Father, how was Nick?
What side?
That's me. How do you say it?
In here where it's nice and warm and you can have your cup of tea. So I would like to welcome Nicholas Carlin, and he's the founder and director of the Irish Traditional Music Archives, and he helped with the booklet and the CD of J Mullally. Also Jackie Small is here, and he did a lot of the research for the CD and the musical notes in the booklet. Now Nicholas is going to say a few words first, and I think Sean Byrne wants to say a few words too. And then we'll have Noel Hill play a few tunes because he has to go fairly soon. Okay, I'll hand you over to Nicholas Carlin.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'd just like to say that we're very pleased to be the co-publisher of this new publication, complete recordings of J Mullally from this place, and a book studying his life, his times, his technique and his style and his discography. This is a cooperative publication between the Irish Traditional Music Archive and Viva Voce Records. Very much. Viva Voce Records are essentially Harry Bradshaw, who a lot of you would know as a radio producer for many years of the traditional music series, The Long Note. And Harry was to be here today. He was to drive me down. In fact, unfortunately, he was taken into hospital yesterday with an asthma attack. And this production is to a very large extent Harry's work. He and I did a series called The Irish Phonograph back in the middle 1980s, which is a long time ago now, and he came to this whole area and did a lot of research, interviewing people. This is interviewing local people, including people who had known J Mullally when he was a young man here in Milltown and playing the concertina, and they had vivid memories of him and of the whole family, and admired the Mullally family as a outstandingly musical family in this locality. The recordings were all made a long time ago, 1926 and 1927, and they were made in another country, in the United States of America, in New York, where Mullally had gone as an emigrant around the time of the First World War. They came back to this country then, as sometimes sent as presents from America, but also reissued by English companies who sold them in Ireland, and eventually then by Irish companies from about the 1930s. So all in all, these recordings of the old 78s were available from the mid-1920s to the mid-1950s. Then the 78s went out of style. They became obsolete. LPs and all that came in, and the 78s were forgotten. So for several decades, William Mullally was forgotten too, I think, until the mid-80s, when Harry Bradshaw collected all his recordings together, and we did a radio program about it, and out of that came a cassette. But then cassettes became obsolete as well. You can't buy or use cassettes anymore. So we brought this out again. So Harry remastered it. So this is brought out to the latest technology now, and it's astoundingly clear sound on it, given that they were recorded in 1926 and 1927. And while we were doing it, we did a whole study, and that's largely the work of my colleague Jackie Small there, who studied Mullally's concertina style, and the history of his tunes, and where they came from, and so on. And Harry's biography of Mullally is all here. So it's all here to be read. I won't go through it, except to say we're delighted to be the co-publishers of this for several reasons. I think it's important, just as music. It's good music to listen to and enjoy just now, even if it had no history to it. But of course it does have a history to it. From the 1920s, even from the 1910s, a lot of emigrant musicians recorded in New York on the fiddle, on the accordion, on the piano, on the banjo, but only one person recorded on the concertina, and that is William Mullally. So, up to the 1960s, he was the only person that you could actually hear playing the Irish traditional concertina on record, and he was heard, as well as on record, on the radio, because the records, of course, were played on the radio. So that's a unique position that he has in the whole history of Irish music. He is the concertina player for the first, 50 years, you might say, of Irish traditional sound recording. Extraordinary position to be in. He's also part of the story of Irish emigration. He left here to go to Liverpool, to go to Birkenhead, and then he eventually went to the States, and he died eventually in the States. There were 11 children in the Mullally family, and 9 of them emigrated. And of course, in New York, he met up with other emigrant traditional musicians from all the 26 counties of Ireland, and they formed a musical community there. But he was unique among them in his playing on record of the concertina. So he's part of Irish musical history, an important part of Irish musical history. He's also, of course, part of local history here. He's playing the music that he learned here before, well, he was born in 1884, so he would have been learning this music by ear as he grew in a musical family. He would have heard it all around, and then eventually he would have got a concertina. We know that he played and was recognised very early on as an important player before ever he left. He played in England, he played in America, and as I say, died in America. But he carried Milltown music with him, Westmeath music with him, to England first, and then to the United States. And very fortunately, he put it down, it was recorded, and we have it here now. So his story, or his stories, go into so many different areas of Irish life. The history of Irish sound recording, history of Irish emigration, the whole position of the concertina as part of Irish musical history. It was an instrument that came in out of the famine and was played widely across the country. My own family, originally from County Meath, played it. I remember elderly members of my family had been slain playing the concertina and melodeon as well, of course, and that was typical of the late 1800s right around the country. In time, the concertina fell out of fashion, and it was left to counties like Clare to hold on to it and nourish it and be associated with it. But it was a national instrument, and of course it's come back in recent years to be a national instrument. And that's really the last thing I want to say about it, that it's here now for young musicians. I'm sure there are some here today, and it's for people to learn, imitate, study the style, the local style here, and to carry it forward into the future, and I'm sure they will. There are many, many people to thank, but they're all listed in here, so I won't go through them all. Just to say special thanks to two local people for local information. There's Noel Hedgeman and Aidan Winnicon, who were very helpful in giving us a steer about local information, local people, and that type of thing. So this has been out a few months now, but this is the official launch. We haven't launched it before, so I'm glad to be able to launch it in William Mullally's home place, especially on the day when the plaque in his memory has been unveiled. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicholas. Now I'll ask Sean Byrne to say a few words.
Well, it will be a very few words because the important thing is to get on to the music. It's been delightful for me because although I love music, unfortunately I'm not musical, and it's nice to discover that one of my ancestors was. And my granduncle, my mother, knew obviously of her uncle, although he had emigrated before her birth. She knew about him, and she knew about the recordings and spoke of him often. And she was aware of the fact that, in fact, he had been one of the earliest, I do remember this fact, that he had been one of the earliest people to record Irish music in the United States. And I suppose one of the most, it's interesting, as Nicholas said, there are so many histories overlapping here. In a sense, it's almost a little case study of the history of the Irish diaspora, because, you know, there was a little, actually I think just right next to this building, the Mullallies lived on a little farm, and James Mullally married Anne Mayers around 1870, and they had 11 children, and 9 of them emigrated. Now, some of them, it turns out, did actually return, as far as I know. And one of the pleasantest aspects of today, and indeed of this event, is that I have discovered my cousins in County Cork, 3 of whom are here, and with whom I hope to remain in contact. And their relationship to me is slightly complex because their great-grandfather was my grandfather, because my grandfather actually married a second time, and I'm delighted to know that they have knowledge of the family tree and we've been able to fill in gaps. So, I'm not going to detain you any longer. I'm thinking of the marvellous lines from Yeats's poem, The Fiddler of Dooney. What was it? He said, the good are always the merry, and the merry love to dance. So I don't know if we're going to have dancing, but we're certainly going to have music. And I noticed we have one of our most distinguished traditional musicians here, so I'm not going to take up his time and let the merriment begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. It was great to have you with us. Now, Noel Hill is going to play a few tunes for us before he has to head off.
Very much.
Well, it was Mick Foster that called me about coming here today a couple of months ago, and I had back in the early 80s floated the idea, being aware of the centenary of the birth of William J Mullally. It didn't get off the ground, but to have some kind of commemoration of his of his music and his contribution to the concertina and to all of the aspects that were raised and so well spoken about by Nicholas and John. But anyway, that didn't happen, and I do recall coming here when I think I played a concert in Mullingar back again in the early 80s, and I came around here just to look around the land and the area of Milltown, having had such regard for William J Mullally, but also, you know, when I was very small, he was really considered in the part of County Clare where I was raised, in the middle of Clare, middle west of Clare. He was really regarded as a very important musician and a great player. And all of the good players, many of whom have passed since, but they would always speak so highly of William J Mullally. And I was in, you know, I spent a lot of time in the house of Paddy Murphy in Connolly, and Mullally's name was mentioned very frequently in that house. Late at night we'd be talking about tunes and Paddy would be going through stuff, and also we'd be out in the meadow saving hay and throwing turf into the shade and all that stuff that happened in those early days. And Mullally had such a reputation because his records were known, and of course he would never have been recorded if the immigration didn't happen, as was the case with Michael Colan and all the other great players. The fact that he did immigrate is our fortune, if you like. And so I came here in the early 80s and I walked around here. I wasn't sure. I asked the wrong person about where he lived, because I was given the impression that it wasn't in Milltown. It was somewhere a little way out the road, and it couldn't be found. But I was actually on the street out there, and that's now I know where the actual house and the homestead was. Anyway, as I said, Mick invited me. I'm going to play a few tunes for you. I have to head off. I have a daughter waiting for me, and I can't leave her out in the rain today, so I'll play a couple of tunes. I've been influenced by the actual music of Mullally, but many influences across my music, so I don't play like, I just take my own turn on each tune, whether it be influenced by piping or fiddle playing or Mullally or any other musician or instrument. So I'll start off with a couple of tunes. This actually is Dr. Gilbert's reading. continue, and that was all fiddle music, in fact. Dr. Gilbert's Reel, recorded by Michael Coleman, of course, and the second tune, a composition of Maurice Lennon from North County Leitrim, now living in America as well. I'm going to play an air just in memory of William J. Mullally. It's such a pleasure to be asked to such an event. As I said, I always, in the early 80s, was hoping something would happen on the centenary of his birth. But anyway, I'm only delighted. And when I do go abroad, and particularly in America, I can call some of my best friends in America from County Westmeath. And it's a real pleasure to be asked to get involved in this because of Mullally and the people I know from this place. They're often under the radar, the amount of music that has come out of this county, Westmeath, all over the world. A huge contribution made. So it was a pleasure to be asked. I'll play this though, it's the air, not sure who composed it, but the poem was, that goes with the song, Bond Knick was written by Donald Connemara. He was from County Clare. He was a hedge school teacher in West Waterford. But the song was actually, or the poem was written, I understand, in America. It's looking back at Ireland, the fair hills of Ireland, Bond Knick but in memory of the great William J. Mullally. Rather than reels, I played the air.
Thank you.
very much. This is a tune that Mullally recorded. I think he called it the Mug of Brown Ale. Old Man Dylan. Jackie, is that what he called the tune? I think that's the name he gave it, wasn't it?
Never said he did it, but he does record it. He did record that.
Yeah, Old Man Dylan is what it's mostly known as, but of course, local names were given to tunes by musicians at the time, local to their own background and the locality. Another Mullally tune that he, that's the London Lassies, but he called it something else again. What did he call it? Yes, it was the Races of Athlone is what Mullally called the London Lassies. It's a really great piece of work. This, my full praise and praises go to Harry and Jackie and to, of course, I said Harry, Nicholas behind me, and Harry who couldn't be with us. But it's really a great piece of work. You should all buy it. I think it's a great collection, a very valuable collection, and that we can live to see the day that it's in the highest, most modern technology, put through it all, and it's such a great recording, and such a lovely production. And the recordings, the music was always great, but not always the conditions, because we had it at home. We had the tune I just played, the Green Rose of Erin. That was at home, it was all scratched, and I remember there was a piece gone off the record, so you had to start the record in a little bit from the edge, and we missed a couple of rounds of the tune. But this solves all of that, and it's the modern technology at its best, a really good production. So you should get this record, and I'm not in the advertising business, but I think it's a really good one. I'll pass it over to the next, whoever else is to come up and speak, but my pleasure to be here in County Westmeath and anything to do with William J Mullally. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Noel. I believe we have another great concertina player among us, Micheál O'Reilly, and he has agreed to play a few tunes for us too. And then we will have our local Nick Foster, Mario Fraser, Paddy Maguire, Willie Kavanagh, Siobhan is after arriving, and any other musicians is in the place. We'll have a bit of a session when this, after this, okay? I would also like to point out that we have those CDs on sale at €15, a special price today. They are usually, I think, 80 or 20, so a special offer today. And I would like to thank, because I'm not coming back up here anymore, I'm going to say all I have to say now. I'm thanking you all for coming. It was great to see such a crowd. I'd like to thank all my fellow officers for all the help, especially Noel Hedgeron. He was very much into this project, and we are delighted now that it's done, and we're very proud of it. So thank you all very, very much.
No, it's all right. Yeah, grand.
The interesting thing about the concertina, the one that we all use anyway, is that generally you don't need much microphones. So you can end up being way too loud. My thanks to Pat for ringing me whatever time ago it was, just telling me this occasion was on. When I was a kid, the microphones didn't go around quite as much. When I was a child, see, you'd play the concertina, and you get up, and somebody would say to you, Clare, like this. See, presuming you were from County Clare. And I'd say, no, County Meath, and they'd all go, they'd look at you queer like, as if you had at least 3 heads. So, I wouldn't have been that familiar with Mullally's recordings until Harry Bradshaw brought them out and played them on the long note in the, I suppose, the 80s, the mid-80s. So, to my delight, you see, I discovered that the first concertina player to record wasn't coming from County Clare at all. So, I always enjoy pointing this out to them when I go down there. So it's great to be back in the home of the concertina. That's enough about that. they were the Boys of Balsadare and the 5 Mile Chase. They're not, I suppose, they'd be more associated with County Sligo, but they're great old reels. Thank you. They were Hardyman the Fiddler, and the second one is called Kitty Come Down to Limerick. Or if you're not in Limerick, it's called Kitty Go Down to Limerick. And that's for all the Limerick people there. So, there's at least one. I'll play you one more set because I'm sure some of you dying to play a few tunes there. So thanks very much to Pat for asking me along again, and to the triumvirate who put out this production. Jackie rang me about, I don't know, a year ago, was it? More. And he said he was putting together this and he was analysing it. And it takes a special kind of an individual to be able to analyse these things. And it's great always to be able to say that you agree with his conclusions too. So, pat on the back for me as well, yeah? I was given. Let's see. For the day that's in it, this first reel is called The Rainy Day, and no winter's day should be without it. The style that Mullally played was a straight row style. He would have been playing nearly all the row nearest to you. So I don't think there's anybody actually in Ireland that I know of anyway that's playing that style anymore. So it's a kind of unique sort of style. It's nearly more related to melodeon in many ways. Straight row, 10-key melodeon. He used about, I think we said seven buttons. So every concertina basically has way too many buttons. And this one has 38, so, do the maths. It's no wonder we get confused. Yeah, thank you again. The Rainy Day, and I don't know, a few other ones after that.
Mick and all musicians will come up here and they can play away and have a few tunes. And I believe we're going to have a song from Claire Crenigan and Dick Hogan as well. So I hope you enjoy yourselves.
pack of camel's wires are tied up around here. So anyway, to give you a bit of a rest from music, we're now going to have a song or two songs or maybe three songs from Claire Cranigan over there in the corner. Come over here, Mrs. Yourself and Dick Hogan. And Margaret is going to give a blast as well.
We're going to sing the spinning wheel, or we're going to I think I'm definitely not suffering from Alzheimer's anyway.
For you must rise
I came out to Milltown. I'd say it's 50 years ago. That's not exaggerating much because I came to Mullingar in 1959 and I think a horse brought me out here initially. It was Father Mackin. Anyway, no, it wasn't. Maybe it was not quite that long, but it's 48 or 9 anyway. But in light of that, I suppose, I think, I wouldn't remember the song we sang then, no I wouldn't. I was trying to think of a song we sang in the Scoria back in those days. But I just have to remember if it's in Irish. No, it's in Irish. My Irish has gone rusty. But maybe we'll sing a Scottish song, seeing that Myra's here and Myra's also a Scots person. So.
Stand into the microphone. Come on into it.
Or sing there.
Yeah, the room.
Cold winter was howling o'er moor and o'er mountain, and wild was the surge on the dark rolling sea. When I met about daybreak a bonny young lassie, who asked me the road and the miles to Dundee. Says I, my young lassie, I canna will tell you the road or the distance, I canna will give. But if you're with me to gang a wee bit, I'll show you the road and the miles to Dundee. Well, at once she consented and gave me her arm. Ne'er a word did I speak where the lassie might be. She appeared like an angel in feature and form, as she walked by my side on the road to Dundee. A glen with a house, Strathmartin behind us, and the spires of the town in full view we could see. She said, gentle sir, I can never forget you, for showing me so far down the road to Dundee. I took the gold pin from the scarf on my bosom, and I said, keep this in remembrance of me. Then bravely I kissed the sweet lips of that lassie, and I parted with her on the road to Dundee. Oh, here's to that lassie, I ne'er will forget her, and Ilka, young laddie, was listening to me. Oh, never be swear to convoy a young lassie, if it's only to show her the road to Dundee.
very much. We're going to finish off now with a few reels, and then I suppose most of us will be heading off elsewhere. The rest of them will stay behind here in Clare for the night. I don't know, that'll be up to them. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the afternoon, and we'll see you somewhere else along the line before long.